Hey guys, and welcome to another video. This video is actually going to be dedicated to a recent purchase that I made. What you guys are seeing there is exactly what it looks like. It is a glass dip pen. That's right. I bought a fancy thing to make fancy lines. So the dip pen that I got is actually a high borosilicate glass dip pen. I bought it off of Amazon for $9.99 and it actually just arrived today, and I got immediately into it because I couldn't wait. It is so pretty. It is so pink. It is so lightweight and fantastic. You guys can get a really good overview here of the nice flutes and that nice tip. I can't. It's beautiful. It's a thing of beauty. It makes me want to do glass blowing really, really bad. So I've seen a lot of people using this, not necessarily this pen, but glass dip pens off and on, just sort of as kind of a gimmicky, fancy thing. I don't see too many artists using this as their go-to pen for inking and things like that. So I really like the way that they looked, and I wanted to give it a try. So here you can see I dip it into the ink, and I kind of just wanted to show you guys how the ink system works. It's not a cartridge system. It's not a fill system. It is literally a dip system. You dip the ink into the well, and the flutes hold the ink, and then as you draw your line, as you're about to see here, the ink gets pulled down, and it gets pulled down in a relatively stable way. I was quite surprised with that. I thought it'd be splotchy and spitty, but it really wasn't, unless you did what I did and twist the pen like that at the very end. I really, really like this pen, like the way it looks. It is quite smooth, and I really don't have the scratchiness that I feel when I use metal dip pens. So that was a huge bonus to me. It just felt nice in my hand, and it felt nice to write with. I mean, what else can I say? It's nice, guys. It's so nice. And it just, I don't know, there's like this aesthetics to it as well, because it looks so good with that ink on it. I couldn't. So I wanted to give this a good field test, and I wanted you guys to see me do it. So I went ahead and I picked out some lyrics from Hamilton the musical to go ahead and write, and pretty much got to work. The paper I'm using is Canson Mixed Media paper, because I feel like it was a fair paper. It wasn't too rough and it's not too smooth. The pen itself is very, very light. I actually had a hard time dealing with it because there's no weight to it. The weight is heaviest at the point in which I hold, and I tend to hold close to the tips of my pens, so that could very well just be me. For people who hold further back, I imagine that the pen is the same as any other writing utensil. It'd be more heavy towards the actual writing portion. So it probably would feel very good in most hands. In mine, the way I hold pens is weird. I admit to it. I was a little bit in the beginning confused as to like the ink flow when I was writing. But what I realized is you sort of have to, as you're writing, move the pen around, so that way the ink, you're not using all the ink on one side, because the flutes, they'll pull down and they'll pull the ink to the paper and everything, and they do their job fantastically. But to get an even distribution of the ink and to not go too light too quickly, you have to kind of twist and work all around. If that makes any sense, you basically have to pull the pen in a circle and work the different flutes. I know it sounds weird, but if you guys were using the pen, you would totally understand what I was saying. The other thing that surprised me is a lot of the reviews said that you could only get a couple lines out of the pen before it ran out of ink. I'm not quite sure what those people were doing that was different from me, but as you can see, I had no problem with it. I have several lines already, and I'm not having any issue. The ink is still flowing just as good as it was in the beginning. I think a lot of people are afraid to dip the pen too deep because you don't want to overfill it, because then you're going to get the spitting and everything. But at the same time, if you go with too little ink, then you're going to constantly be dipping. You need to sort of find that nice in between. And as the ink is going down, because the glass is clear, you can actually see when you're starting to run out of ink. So you can sort of gauge how much longer you've got. Now that's going to take a little bit of practice too, because if you're doing like me, I'm using a colored ink. I'm using sepia. It kind of gives like, it almost gives like a stained effect, but it does clean right off. So it's not an issue, but yeah, you can see like the ink going away. It was really neat in my opinion, because you can't do that with ballpoint pens for sure. You are just kind of surprised when they start spitting and running out. And in this case, you can kind of tell. But yeah, it held up really good. It stayed relatively dark all the way to the end. I didn't really run into any issues until, well, here pretty soon. The ink itself going or fading and spitting. It's coming up. There we go. So yeah, it filled up pretty much an entire page of lyrics. So I don't know. I'm quite pleased with that. It does get a little bit lighter as it goes, but you can always just re-dip if you want to darken your letters back up. The ink that I used, I actually spoke with Becca Hilburn on what type of ink to use, and she recommended a platinum fountain pen ink. It's in sepia, and that was $19.99, and it's just the right consistency. Oh look, cleaning, guys. Cleaning is so simple. Look, that's all you got to do. You just swirl it in some water, and it makes really, really neat ink splotchy awesomeness, and then you just wipe it off with a paper towel. The paper towel's not going to hurt it at all, and it's clean, and you don't have to worry about rusting or anything. So yeah, I really enjoyed this pen. I think it's kind of neat. I do picture myself writing with it every now and then, especially if I'm writing letters to people and I want it to look nice and fancy. So very happy with this purchasing decision. And yeah, I will have a link in the description below if you guys are interested in these products. They're associate links, so yeah. Bye!